and welcome to another episode of Influence and Growth Mastery. Here with me today, I have another special guest, Courtney Copeland. Courtney, welcome to the podcast today. It's so great to interview you. Good to have you on the show. Tell us what you do, who you are, and what you've been up to.
Thank you so much, Tonya. So, as you said, my name is Courtney Copeland. I am affectionately known as the Trauma Tamer. So I help people and businesses kind of overcome a block that they have hit. Oftentimes that's trauma that they may not have realized was actually a trauma instead of just an experience. And I help them grow their businesses and heal in their personal lives.
That's wonderful. So when did you start your business and how did you get started? Did you come from a corporate world, 9-to-5 job, and then right into starting your own business, or how did you get started?
I did. So I have a very unique background. I've been in the claims industry for 23 years, which has not nothing to do with trauma. But that was my background. My undergraduate degree is creative writing. You'll learn quickly you need to do something else to get a job to do that. So I went into the insurance world and started in a claims department. And then in 2016, I decided I wanted to go to grad school. So I went to graduate school and obtained a master's in human services counseling. During that time, I mentored with a professor who was very, into trauma would be the best way to put it. She was able to kind of say, hey, it's a little bit of a different approach when somebody has trauma. And she kind of took me under her wing. I joined the Green Cross Academy of Traumatology and learned quite a bit about treating trauma. So I've done a bunch of extra courses. I've taken a lot of additional training, and I started out working with first responders. So yeah, I worked with them for what they see and hear in the field. So it's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. So when you talk about trauma, there's a lot of things that go on in my mind to describe trauma. So for your business, because I've had a lot of people on my show that does deal with trauma. So for the audience's perspective, talk about what type of trauma that you're a specialist in.
Okay. So I work quite a bit with, like I said, I've worked quite a bit with first responders. So they see and hear things they can't unsee and unhear. And I've been gifted the ability to be able to listen to them tell the stories they need to tell when they walk into a scene where there's been perhaps an infant fatality or I don't want to scare your audience, or perhaps a horrible accident, a car accident or anything like that. So I work with them and kind of get them regulated, work through some of that. It's called a debriefing as one of the things that I do with them. And then I've actually learned in working with some friends in business that sometimes they also get stuck in a trauma and that prevents their business from moving forward. So, for example, I worked with someone a couple of weeks ago where she has done all the things. She's posted, she's workshopped, she's done master classes, she's done all the things to grow her business. And she's just stuck. So what we did is we talked about where her voice is, because she's like, I just feel like no one hears me. Well, we did some work and found out she's not showing up boldly in her business, which is preventing her, like she has a little bit of fear. There's some trepidation. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing it, but she's not actually putting her real voice out there. She's checking off a list and not using an authentic voice. And so we worked together and narrowed the issue down to, there was a time when she was 7 or 8 years old. I went backwards, 7 or 8 years old. And her uncle called her out for something, and her parents admonished her quite severely for her using her voice as a 7-year-old. And since 7 or 8 year old. And since that time, she just kind of hid back into the shadows, stopped. Not that she doesn't talk. She's not mute. She talks. but she learned to control and only speak when spoken to. And you're a woman. We get that, and we're close to the same age. When we were kids, we got that a lot. And so we are rediscovering her voice so that she can use it in an authentic way. So the trauma can even be something where you don't realize you just were a kid and you don't realize that thing. And sometimes we call that what's called a little T trauma. I don't know if any of your past guests have gone over the difference between like a big T trauma and a little T trauma.
No, and I would love for you to go over that if you could.
Absolutely. So a big T trauma is the things that we think of as trauma. Major car accident, having some type of amputation, getting very, very ill, and having to overcome a cancer diagnosis, things that are like the world thinks is big trauma. Little trauma is when there are things that set in. So for example, with this particular client, it was her uncle calling her out and her parents admonishing her. That was a big deal for her 7-year-old, 8-year-old brain. And it has stuck with her since. It could be your teacher calling you out in class in front of everybody and royally embarrassing you. Or as adults, it could be a boss that ridicules you in a meeting in front of your peers. Things that kind of sit and you remember and you ruminate on, those can be little traumas. And we don't realize how much they affect us until someone's like, hey, where'd that come from? Who told you you didn't have the right to speak? Who told you you didn't have the right to use your authentic voice? And a lot of times we don't think about it like that. We just think, that was a bad thing when I was a kid, and you move on. But then there's little places where we don't show up as our authentic selves. And we can kind of step it back to one of those little traumas, those little T traumas, and work through it. And then I believe, and I've seen with my clients, true authenticity show up and then their business just booms. Like they're finally out of their shell and okay, you can see me, you can hear me now. So I've seen a big difference with that.
Let me ask you this question, Courtney. Is it possible, because I've been wondering this as I've had these guests on and I've never asked this question, because this came to me last week, actually. I had someone else on, but not for trauma. It was actually for something else. And this question came to me and I thought this is not the appropriate place to ask this question, but it has to do with, I believe, what you're talking about. Is it possible that someone has had a trauma that has shut them down using their voice that is stuck back there? They don't know where it is or what it is. They just know something's there. But you, through having the conversations, help them start to recall what that something is. And then once they figure it out, there's that, I get it. That's where it came from.
Yes, 100%. And there's tools in my toolkit, and any good, and not any good counselor, but so one, I waived my license so that I can work with anyone, anywhere, very intentionally. But anyone who has gone through counseling training and has tools such as EMDR or tapping or powerful questioning, cognitive behavioral therapy is able to kind of like unarchive that. So just like you said, it's back here, it's a below the surface. So for this particular example that I've given, it was below the surface. She's like, I don't know what happened. I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. At an event, let's dig it up. And it's not always just the first time we chat. Like we ask a lot of questions. We go through a lot of things. And so the person also has to be ready, Tonya, to do the work and get the shovel out and go in there and dig through that hard stuff, because oftentimes we dissociate. Take a step back from that. And so we live in a permanent state of dissociation from a certain event for survival. That often happens with people who have survived a sexual assault, a regular assault, where you just kind of shut down that part, that memory, and you may not even be able to recall details. You know what happened, and we're done. And so there's safety in that. That's the way that your brain works. You know, your frontal lobe, your amygdala, all of that works together to shut that down to keep you safe. Because if you ruminated in that every day, that could be problematic. And so what we do is we kind of, like you said, back in that, it's hidden back here. We put it in the box. We don't want it to be a jack in the box where it just pops out in the middle of nowhere. That's no good to anybody. Right. But we gently work on it. So, you know, not every trauma person or counselor is going to be a good fit for you. Not every coach is going to be a good fit for you. And it's okay to be like, this isn't working, and go on to somebody who you feel safe with, who you feel like you can trust. Because when you start to unarchive those things, there's so much vulnerability in that. And a lot of people are uncomfortable with vulnerability.
I completely agree. And I was there at one point in time, but, you know, I have decided personally, in order to get to where I want to be, which is big, my goals are big. And I've decided that you have to share, there's a lot of junk that you have to unpack to get to where you want to be. And honestly, a lot of junk that I didn't know was there. A lot of junk I forgot was there. And so just like you're saying, and I asked that question because I have worked with people in my business that sometimes just can't get to the growth that they want. And I too get somewhat frustrated because I'm like, why can't they cross that barrier?
Yes.
But I have learned why they can't cross that barrier. And that dealing with those types of things to help people get to the growth, to the scaling that they want to get to, but they've struggled. And I'm like, I know there's something way back that is causing that mindset not to move forward. There's something they have to deal with way back here. And until they deal with that way back here, they're not going to get here, which has caused me to decide I've got to go get more training myself. And, you know, and then I listen to all of these coaches who are like, stay in your own lane, stay in your own lane. But I'm such a professional development individual that it's hard for me to stay in my own lane, because when I can't help people, I become frustrated.
Yes.
So I see that, you know, you're a certified life coach, you're a certified social media expert, you have all of these things, but working with a couple of these people caused me to go start researching life coaching, relationship coaching, all of these things, because I had to understand relationships, life coaching, these deep questionings to get people to where you can get them to start talking about these things way back. And Courtney, I have to be honest with you, as I started doing that, I started digging up from way back here for myself.
Yes.
And there's these things, that's what's causing me to become more vulnerable, because I'm digging up things from way back when. And I've been able to deal with them. And it's helped me to have a better relationship with my father, who I'm so thankful, because he's very ill now. And I'm thankful that this has happened before he passes on. And I've not talked about, I've mentioned this great relationship with my father now, because I now understand his personality.
Yes.
And I can communicate in his personality. But had I not gone through the certification of behaviors and personalities, I would not have had that victory. And I would not have dug up some of these other things that are way back, way back.
Yes.
But I still have more questions, and I'm digging out the answers as I go through this myself. And so I encourage the audience to really get what you're saying, because there's so much value to dealing with the traumas that are way back.
Yes.
There's so much relief and victory, if you will, so much better sleep at night.
Oh, yes.
When you begin to deal with those things. So it's good to hear that you deal with the voice, the accidents, the trauma. I mean, I think of deaths, accidents, the things that people do walk up on and see.
Yes.
I don't know. I've asked many times. I've had conversations with my mom and my sisters. We've had conversations about how in the world do those people go throughout life with all of these things, these trauma, the people in the emergency rooms and the doctors and the flight help. How do they deal with what they see day in and day out, day in and day out? But I think that it would be very difficult without having people in their life like you.
Yes.
Any comments to that? And I guess, I mean, you help. I'm so inquisitive about this.
Ask away. Ask away. I am an open book. So it depends on the person, quite honestly, because we all bring our own life experience to whatever we do. Right. Mm-hmm. So even if we're in the exact same experience, have it at the exact same place, the exact same time, looking at the exact same thing, what I bring and what you bring are very different.
Yes.
Because we have different histories. So that's one of the things that we take into consideration. Quite a lot of my first responders, medical folks, and I have worked with some veterinarians as well, because they have to deal with a lot of death and things like that as well. They get resilient quickly, or there's a suicide level that's very high in those professions, which is unfortunate, because they do go in to the horrors of humanity. You know, unfortunately, we have a lot of shootings in our country. There's now been a lot of, the fires and things like that, where you go in and there's carnage after that. So they have to kind of go in and deal with it. And what a lot of them do is either shut down or compartmentalize. Unfortunately, there's a lot of drinking and recreational behavior. Quite often with them, it's not like drugs or things like that, because they have to keep their job. But it's not unusual for one of my officers that I've worked with to drink a half of a fifth to a fifth of alcohol a night, or like 12 to 15 beers a night, which for you and I would be on the floor. Like, I don't drink, but if I did, I don't eat. But that's their normal. So like when I work with them, one of the things I ask is there a change? If you normally drink a 12 pack, are you now drinking a keg? Because if so, that's alarming. But they numb themselves. So, and I dare say anybody in addiction has probably had trauma because they're numbing something. So often these folks have to just shut it down. And a good portion of them do it until they retire. And then once they retire, if they don't put the work in, that's when these memories creep up, these demons, for lack of a better term, start taking over. And then they go into the next thing. And then they go into the next thing. A lot of people who have experienced trauma stay very, very busy, because stopping to think about it is challenging. So when you're dealing with the blood, guts, and gore, there's unfortunately not a lot of people that can listen to what they have to say, because it's intense. It's intense. And I think my claims life, my 9 to 5 throughout the years, because I handled fatality and disfigurement claims, I think that prepared me for when I went to graduate school to be able to work with some of these folks. Now, some of the business folks I worked with are former first responders. They now have a business. I've worked with former military folks who now have a business. And, so they've seen that stuff in the field. So there's a lot of shutting down. There's a lot of tucking it in the back of your head. There's a lot of numbing. And we see that so often. It's become normal or cultural for some of these things. And that happens with the best of us. A lot of, I dare say 95% of the women that I've worked with that are voluptuous have probably had a sexual trauma in their past where something inside is keeping them. They have done all the diets, all the weight, all that, like all the things, and the weight is still there. And oftentimes it's a self-preservation factor. And, so there's so many different things that happen in our lives that affect us. So even though these folks do those things day in and day out, oftentimes they either find a coping mechanism or they don't stay in the job very long. So there's not a lot of tenure with those positions.
Yeah. 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 I have to say what you're saying is so true. I've spoken about this before on podcasts, but I have a brother who 8 years ago committed suicide. And it's okay. He experienced exactly what you were talking about. He was in the military and had gone to war and, actually worked in Saudi Arabia in his business. But while he was there, he had to help carry dead bodies. And so just traumatized by the scenery. I mean, he was a very loving, caring, connecting, networking type individual. And so every 4th of July, the week before, I mean, he just dreaded the sound of fireworks, petrified him. He was traumatized by the 4th of July. And, he drank a lot. In fact, he did not even know, they said, did not even know he committed suicide. He was so drunk. He was just out of his mind when he did it. And it's just a traumatizing thing. And to have gone through, and he could not even talk about it. And he kept himself busy, just like you say. I mean, he went through a divorce. He lost his business, just a lot of trauma there. Had a shoulder injury. The surgery went bad. He couldn't use his arm, in so much pain. I mean, he just drank himself to death till he committed suicide. He felt nobody cared, but had a humongous funeral. If he just knew the people out there cared for him like he did, he would have been surprised. And so, I just share with people, if you're in that shape, get to somebody like Courtney and get the help that you need to get through those traumatizing moments, any type of trauma. I also saw, Courtney, stress management so I'll ask the question, stress management compared to trauma, is it the same? Is it different? Are there comparisons? I mean, are they related? Talk about that.
So they're similar tools. So stress management, a lot of the things that we recommend or that, we've learned and studied, for working with trauma are similar to stress management. So when you're getting triggered, when something's escalating, if the fireworks are coming, let's get those head canceling headphones. Let's turn the music up. Let's get you in a movie. Let's do something where you're not going to be affected by that. That's one way to manage that stress. Now, other things, exercise. I know everybody says exercise, but it's true. Yeah. Moving your body helps. It just helps. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like intense cardio. You don't need to be Richard Simmons, if anybody even remembers who that is. But, you just walk on the treadmill. or walk outside, walk your dog, do something where you're just moving your body. Yeah. Grounding is amazing. Getting outside in nature, take your shoes off, walk on the grass. If you don't have that option, if you're in a concrete jungle, so to speak, get a plant and actually play with the dirt, like replant stuff. I have a couple of my people that I work with in New York. I just have them change their plants into different pots because then they're feeling the soil and the plants, or even just hold a leaf for a plant and rub it between your fingers and just, do some deep belly breathing. Stretching is amazing. A lot of people underestimate how the body keeps the score. So there's a very dry book, but a very well written book from Bessel van der Kolk called The Body Keeps the Score. And it shows how trauma stays in the body. So when you mentioned your brother's shoulder, that didn't surprise me. He had something with his body where the trauma just got stuck. But some of those stress techniques, the deep breathing, things like that, those are great in traffic. Those are great if you're frustrated over something. They're great to work with your kids if you have little people and they're having a meltdown. One of the things that I've learned, I don't work a whole lot with kids, but one of the things that I've learned with kids is, number one, let's find out why they're fussing. If they're able to tell you, find out why they're fussing. And it's the same with adults. We just change it a little bit, get to the core of the issue, and then you can address it. But if you or they or somebody is you just are freaking out, some of the breathing techniques, the box breathing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, those are all things that are very beneficial to kind of de-escalate you, just to get you through a moment. So the stress management techniques are to get you through a moment. But in terms of helping with trauma, I recommend so many different modalities because everyone is different, because stress will get you through the moment. The trauma reduction will help release it from you, from your body.
That's good.
And
that's good.
I dare say anyone who's had a trauma, one of the things I ask them to do, I dare say it's just trapped somewhere. So a lot of women carry trauma in their hips, their lower back, especially in their the front hips, their hip flexors, things like that. There's a lot of lower psoas. There's a lot of women who have lower back and hip problems if they sustain trauma. Wow. Gentlemen tend to do neck, shoulders, sometimes low back, but the body will hold on to something. And so if you're in chronic pain, you've done all the things. Let's talk about some of the things that you've had happen in your life. And maybe we can work through some of that pain and get it out of your body, because some of it is just stored trauma. Those muscles are so tight, it doesn't matter what you do to them. They're holding on to something. They are just holding on until we work through some stuff. Then they can start to gently release. So your body will tell you when there's trauma.
Wow. Is anxiety the same?
Not exactly the same, but trauma can absolutely induce anxiety. So anxiety is something where things kind of amp you up. Oftentimes it's a result of an incident or a trauma. Some people are just more prone to anxiety. And there's a lot of generational stuff that goes with some of these things too, where I'll use myself as an example. So my great grandmother came over from another country. She was from Hungary, and my great grandfather passed. So she had to make a living. Yeah. So she started running a boarding house, my grandmother, and started drinking because of the things she had to do at that boarding house to make it work. My grandmother worked in the boarding house. She started drinking. My mom said, I'm not drinking, but she still had the same levels of tension and anxiety that my grandmother and my great grandmother did, even though she didn't have those same things. Unfortunately, she didn't work through that before she passed. I have 2 siblings. All 3 of us have decided we're not going to walk through life that anxious. So we started putting in the work and breaking those generational, not curses, but kind of a curse, because it can pass down through generations. So your DNA can actually be adjusted by putting work in you can recreate neural pathways in your brain to get that anxiety out of you, not out of your bloodline, but to mitigate it so it doesn't continue past you. And so the anxiety is often situationally related. Something happened for you to get amped up during a moment. And that can be any time in your life. So the trauma is there was an event. It did happen. And that can recalling that or shutting that into the back of your mind so much can make that anxiety kind of creep up, and you kind of stay at a mid-level of anxiousness forever. And you'll get medicated, and the medication will work for a while, and then it'll wear off. And then we need a different medication or something else. And when we start working through some of that, we'll pinpoint it back usually to a life event, and then, or generational, and then start working through that. And people are able to find freedom from having all of these symptoms.
Wow. This has been so educational. Everybody needs to hear this podcast. This has been so educational. I have seen and I have experienced where, in the family, somewhere down the line, where in friends, even we've had conversations about it, but people have decided, for my family, it has been alcohol. It's been alcohol. They've been an alcoholic, and then my brother alcoholic. But we, in the family, we have decided this is stopping. This is not happening. My mother doesn't drink. My sisters don't drink. We're like, this is not happening. And because you can just see every generation down. Excuse me. And just the things that we have seen and experienced as to what those things can do, we are like, that is not going to happen in our family. Or we've seen situations where there's been some type of abuse or whatever. And we are like, this is not going to happen. And, so it's like you say, whether it's a curse, not a curse or whatever, we've got to break that cycle of that moving forward. And, taking those steps, whether it's mental, it's exercise, it's breathing, it's whatever, the things that you have to do. This has just been so informational. Talk about, Courtney, the Trauma Treehouse.
Okay.
What is the Trauma Treehouse? And I'm curious, how did that name evolve?
Okay. One, thank you for doing the work and putting the stop in your family's lineage.
Yes.
Do that. That's a big decision. And kudos to you and your sisters and your family for doing that. So bravo. Good job.
Thank you.
The Trauma Treehouse kind of came about because I deal with so much really heavy stuff. You would not really know that I'm kind of funny. So I do try to interject humor, because when it gets really heavy and really dark, we just need to take a pause, take a breath. Certainly it's going to be at the appropriate time. But I try to be a little funny sometimes too. So
I love fun.
Yes.
I love fun.
Laughter is amazing medicine. It truly is. And so some of what I do will include really goofy stuff just to get my clients to laugh, just to get them to take because when you laugh, you take a breath, right?
Yeah.
So I need to, all right, I will say some of the most random off the wall things. And they're like, what? And then they start laughing. That's okay. So that's kind of where the Trauma Treehouse came in, because when we're kids, the treehouse is kind of fun and whimsical, and we go in there to have a good time. So the trauma part is obviously what I do and help people with. But the treehouse is all right. You can come in here. It's going to be okay.
It's safe. It's fun.
It's not the dungeon of doom, So come on in. And certainly there's a lot of education in there. I drop a lot of education in there. But it's just a safe place for people to come and be like, hey, this is going on. This is going on. I get a lot of DMs. I get a lot of text messages, and then when people are ready to work with me, because they have to be ready. I'm not going to work with someone who's not ready for the work. They might think they are and they want to make that change, but we start scratching the surface and they're like, they're like a turtle. They come back in their shell and they're like, not yet. It's not yet.
Yes. Yes.
And there are people that are never ready, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. That's not a horrible thing. It's just how it is. So the treehouse is just a place for everyone to know that everyone's welcome in the treehouse. We just come in, we learn, work through some stuff, and then we have a little fun. So it's something where hopefully the way I worded it is, you know, you can come in and hang out with me. We're going to laugh a little, but we're also going to do some healing. So
you're about to make me cry. Oh my goodness. That is so good. Because what's on my mind is this person. I need to connect you with this person. I've known this person for so long, and I want such a breakthrough for this individual. And man, what fun. Treehouse. I love that.
Thank you.
I can just picture the treehouse, just, you know, Barbie dolls and baby dolls and just telling secrets. That's what you do in the treehouse. Let's go share secrets and talk all things. And that's, oh my goodness, that's the bomb.com name right there.
Thank you. That's so kind. Thank you so much.
Yes, that's awesome. I'm so glad I asked. And I'm not kidding. I'm about to drop a tear.
Oh.
Right here on my own podcast.
Take a breath. It's okay. It's okay. Deep breath.
I love it. I love it. Yes, because, you know, you want such breakthroughs. I'm going to have to take my glasses off a minute. You want such breakthroughs for your people, and you work so hard, and you're like, what is the answer? So when you said the breakthrough may never come, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's got to come for some people, because you see they need it so bad and you think they want it. But I think they're so afraid.
Yes.
They're so afraid of that breakthrough. And we try so hard to tell them it's safe, it's okay to let through or let go. But I think they're so afraid of what people will think. And no matter how much you say, stop worrying about what other people think and let it go. Because, you know, I spent 34 years in corporate life, and you worry about what people think. But when I started my own business and I said I could care less what people think about me, it was so relieving to not care anymore. So relieving. I mean, it was like a bulldozer. I'm not even kidding you. The day I walked out, Courtney, of corporate, I kid you not, I literally felt that bulldozer crawling down my back. I had such, and you talked about it, I had such hurt in my arm. I went to physical therapy for 1 year, and they could not figure out what was wrong with my arm. We couldn't get it to stop hurting. 1 week after quitting my corporate job, pain was gone. I went back to my appointment, and they're like, so how are you doing? I'm like, it's gone. And they're like, what? We've been working on you for a year, and all of a sudden, a week later, it's gone. I said, you know what? Excuse me, I'm getting so excited. I said, you know what? I believe it was stress. It was 34 years of stress.
All built up in that arm.
Seriously, it wasn't that long, but there was just some things that had worked up over that year that were really bothering me. But no kidding, 1 week. I mean, I felt that bulldozer roll off my shoulder when I walked out the door. It was that quick. But then a week later, the stress was gone. And you want so bad to tell people, look, just listen to me. Look, go hire a trauma coach. Go hire a life coach. go hire a spiritual coach, get connected with God,
Yes.
do something and believe it's going to change your life. But people, they just don't get it. And when you know that you know that you know that you can do one referral, one introduction, one connection to one person, feel better, says, oh, he's a phenomenal podcast guy.
Yes.
He says you're one podcast away from monetization, I'll say.
Mm-hmm.
You're one person, you're one connection away from changing your life.
Yes.
And that's what I believe. And I want that so much for people because I know how that feels. And so anyway, the trauma or the treehouse, what was it? What's the name?
Trauma Treehouse.
The Trauma Treehouse. I can't even think of it. Yes, the Trauma Treehouse. That is so magical. That is so divine. And so in closing today, because I don't know what else we could add to this other than you are supposed to be here for sure. And so I want you to share with people how they can get a hold of you if they want to connect with you. Oh, and in that, I want you to start with the Connection Cafe.
Okay.
Because as I saw on your social media and on your website, let people know about the Connection Cafe, especially if it's a place that they can come and connect before they join the Trauma Treehouse or the Trauma Treehouse. Start with that and then share with on social media how they connect with you. And then what you do say, if they don't connect with that in the from the podcast, we will put that in the show notes as well so that they can just click on the link and go to that. So I'm going to open it back up to you.
Okay. Thank you. So the Connection Cafe is a place I have it the third Thursday of, because of summer, people don't show up as much. So right now it's the third Thursday of the month and it's open forum. So it's at 8 p.m. Eastern and everyone can just come and we do a little bit of networking. Hi, who are you? What do you do? And then we just kind of open it up so people can learn a little bit about me, a little bit about each other. And we kind of talk about what anybody wants to talk about. So some people come and just hang out and say their name and just observe, because they're not quite comfortable yet. Some people come and I have a lot of regulars that come. So it's kind of, I've found that a lot of business owners, it gets lonely. It gets lonely. And as a solo entrepreneur, I'm a solo entrepreneur. People need that companionship. They want the camaraderie. So it's just a place to come and hang out and talk. And if people want to work with me one-on-one or go a little bit deeper than just chatting in there, I can be reached through my website, which is traumatreehouse.com. I'm also on the TikTok, but not very, very active on it. And that's just my name, Courtney Copeland, or actually the Courtney Copeland, because Courtney Copeland was taken. So I'm the Courtney Copeland.
I like that. I like that better.
And same with the other handles. So on Facebook, it's Trauma Treehouse. And then on the Instagram, it is also Trauma Treehouse. And just send me a message and we can find a way to work together. I have hourly. We have a 90-minute deep dive if you just want to see if we're a good fit. And then I have packages available. So I can work with individuals and groups. I've worked with both. So those are the ways to get a hold of me.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you so much for being here. I always feel like that I'm the blessed one when I do podcasts. I do know that my audience does get some great information. I do have people who reach out to me and say, I connect with that person. And then they go and they research people and they have connected and they've done business with people. So I do know that these podcasts work. And so, but I always feel like the blessed one in the end So I do appreciate you being here, Courtney. You have been phenomenal. Your information, your business is phenomenal.
Thank you.
So I absolutely wish you the best of the luck on your journey. And I just can't wait to see where you end up in this world for sure. The Trauma Treehouse is just, I think that's the best name I've heard so far. In my 4 years of business, that's the best name. So anyway, for those of you in my audience, I have a Facebook group that's called Influence and Growth Mastery, just like the name of this podcast. So if you are an entrepreneur or a small business owner and you want to join that free Facebook group and be with the influencers that are in the group and just connect. So that's what we do. We just connect, and no sales, no anything there for you. It's just a group of influencers, business owners who are connecting and have a good time. So feel free to join that if you will. And until the next episode, we will talk to you soon. Bye.